everyone, welcome to Multiplayer Episode 2, the gaming podcast where we bring you the past, present, and the future of gaming. I'm your player one, Brickhouse, or also known as Dan from That Geek Show, and joining me today, we have a new player.
John, I guess.
You don't have to say any of your tags or anything like that, that's fine. And then we have a returning player from That Geek Show.
Hey, what's up guys? This is Connor from That Geek Show.
Alright, so this episode, guys, I want to talk about difficulty in games. First off, what is the hardest game you guys have ever played? Hardest game or level or boss? Something like difficult you encountered. You guys have anything in mind?
I mean, I might say the hardest thing I've ever had to actually beat was Gilgamesh as an extra boss in Final Fantasy XII. It took me about 3 hours to down that guy, but it was well worth it at the end.
I'm gonna have to go on the Final Fantasy route too. I think the first ever difficult thing I ever encountered in a video game was Final Fantasy X, and that was Seymour Flux. When you fight him on Mount Gagazet, I was probably 11 or 12 at the time that I did that, and I blew through the rest of the game pretty easily. I didn't have a problem. There were some points where I got confused on what was going on, but then as soon as I got to Seymour Flux, it took me 2 months. It took me 2 months to figure out how to beat him.
Damn.
Because I'd never encountered the zombie thing before. I'm like, why is he one-shotting me? I don't get it. And so, finally after I think it was after 3 weeks, I noticed that my characters were glowing green and the zombie thing was popping up. I'm like, what's that do? And so, and then I think it was a couple weeks later that I realized I tried. Something happened. I think one of them was getting really low, and I went to go fully heal them, and it killed him. I'm like, what's going on? And eventually, I figured out how it was all happening. I'm like, oh, Seymour Flux.
Finally figured out the mechanic.
Yeah, that would probably be mine.
I think my most recent hardest boss would be the Adamantoids in Final Fantasy 15.
Okay.
The giant one.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
That took me a couple hours.
I can see that.
For me, it didn't feel like it was difficult, more as it was a patience test. It was just can I keep doing the same thing over and over again for I think it took me 3 hours too when I first did it, because if you did it at level 55 or below, I think I did it at 45, it was gonna take you 5 hours.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So definitely that was one of the hard bosses. And then I don't think I've ever beaten Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1. I'm just gonna toss that out there. I have not beaten Sephiroth in the Coliseum challenges for Kingdom Hearts 1. I
didn't ever fully there's a lot of games I wish I played when I was younger rather than now, because I feel like they would have been way more difficult when I was younger, like Kingdom Hearts. I never finished it. I think I always got to, I think it was Ariel's Land, Ariel's World, and then I would just not play it for some god awful reason. I don't know if it's because I got another game, or is it broke or something like that.
I mean, that's a pretty bad level to end on anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and so Connor let me borrow it 2 years ago. He let me borrow his PlayStation 2 and Kingdom Hearts, and I beat it, and I beat Sephiroth with the first try, but it was the most...
Oh wow, look at you.
I'm 23 when I did that. But at the same time, I didn't feel like it was easy. I did not feel like Sephiroth was easy. Even a game that old, I felt this is a hard boss. This was no joke. It was me dashing around dodging.
For a kid's game,
For it to be that hard?
that's a pretty
That
hard
makes
boss.
And I feel games nowadays... Well, go for it.
At least you finished on Ariel's Undersea, or Land in the first one, then the second one. The second one's just fucking...
Oh
easy
no,
boss.
it's worse, way worse.
It's water levels. Water levels are always the worst.
Yeah.
Just because of motion control, it always squeeze you up.
Yeah, because you don't know how to move. It's just creepy underwater for whatever reason, and everything's hard underwater. Legend of Zelda, it was Ocarina of Time's water level.
Mm-hmm.
I've only played it once. I played that one. I didn't play that until I was 19. So when I was too old to play a game that.
I was way little kid when I played that game.
Oh, I'm sure, and I'm sure it was way more
remember
difficult. I'm sure it was hell. When I went through the Water Temple, it was more a don't stress out factor, because I'm underwater more than anything. But the puzzles didn't feel like they were too hard, because I got the concept of them as soon as I swam in. But it was more I gotta go up, go around, and it was more annoying for me than anything. But it was still felt harder than most. Yeah, compared to other games nowadays. What's the most difficult game that you played recently?
I mean, getting to figure out how God of War worked this time around was very tricky because switching from like regular directional pads and button inputs to using the R and L triggers to fight in it was a big change in direction of how I usually play those games. And then beating the last Valkyrie took me about 2 days to really like get it down.
Okay.
And I'm still mad about that fight, but it it made me feel really good after I finished it because now it's the one platinum trophy I have on my PS4 because I spent hours doing every single thing in that damn game. But it's worth it. Oh man, and I'm so ready for.
That's 1,000
next one.
points on PlayStation, on like the PlayStation, whatever.
Oh, it's well worth it.
That's
$10.
something.
That's $10.
That's something I need to. I need to do. I think I was playing God of War, and then something came out, and I'm like, I'm gonna put this borrowed copy of God of War away, and I'm gonna play this, and then I never got back into it. But like that's putting in work.
Oh yeah. No, I got every single item, finished all the lower parts, and then I spent 2 days on that Valkyrie.
How long did it take you to do all of that?
I think I'm pretty sure my combined total hours is like above 75, 80.
So a good amount of times.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Not like Fallout time where it's like 400 plus hours.
Oh no, I think the longest I spent on a game is probably Pokemon Ruby. I have about 300, 400 hours in that game, like my original.
Yeah.
Dang.
You still have your original?
Oh yes. Hell yeah, I do.
That's like 10 years old.
With the new like Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, transfer all those rubies throughout the games, and then getting them like.
But they won't go to Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Because that's only going to be first gen, as far as we know, for the start.
Yeah, I
They'll
think-
probably introduce more.
For the
I
start.
mean, but they're going to have another generation of Pokemon. They already did confirm that.
Yeah, okay.
What's
I
the
just-
Alana region or something?
The Alola is currently.
Alola's current, but like it's the Alana or something region.
Oh.
That's just some. That's maybe it's like fan driven, but that's just some I've been seeing.
I don't
like,
know.
Everywhere else, every so
Haven't heard of
often.
Well, because I knew that we were going to get a Gen 8 eventually. Like,
Yeah.
you can't end on an odd number. Also, I feel like we got kind of gypped on Eevee's last evolution. I feel like we need one more evolution. Because there's 2 every time, at least.
One more.
What did we get?
evolution.
What did we get this last time?
We didn't get anything for... So we get it on the evens.
Oh.
Yeah. And Gen 6, we only got Sylveon. So Gen 8, we should
Let me
theoretically
introduce the
get it.
fairies.
But anyways, so God of War, you said, was probably the most
Yes,
difficult. Would you
currently.
probably agree with that because you played it?
I don't know. I'm probably not at the same level that John is at, just because I haven't played the other God of Wars, so I can't say like the difficulty from these game or from the old God of War games to this game. I picked it up. Like I went on normal level. I went through the tutorials, so I can't say it was hard. I think the hardest thing for me to get into, I think in terms of recently, was Monster Hunter World,
I was gonna say.
because I had not played
Any other Monster Hunter before that?
any of the Monster Hunters, and so I didn't know what to do. And so I was kind of lost, and it was like, there are some tutorials, I'm like, okay, cool, this is cool, and then like, there were like hidden facets of it, I'm like, oh man, you really have to like delve into it to get all of
Yeah, you
the...
do, you
I gotta agree, because like when I was... Because I kept hearing about how Monster Hunter World was hard, and I'm like, whatever. And then I finally started playing it, and like, I think I got pretty far. I was like, this isn't that bad, and occasionally Connor would help me. But like, even then, it didn't feel bad. And then it got to a point where like, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. It was like, because I was just kind of hacking and slashing through everything. It's like, oh, as long as I can read the movements, I can win the fight. And then like they just started getting like out of control hard. I'm like, all right, so I need to upgrade my weapons. I need to get up. I need to properly match weapon types now against them. So I have to like do that. Like that's kind of annoying, but like whatever. And it's like, all right, now I need to do the armor too. Okay, that's not enough. Now I like, I can't get the armor. I need to capture these ones now. So like, figuring out all the extra little stuff you had to do, actually having to make items and having to use all the items. Like, you couldn't just straight up fight any monsters. And and that threw me for a curve, because most games nowadays feel like, go fight this guy. You can fight him with what you got. I have a stick and like a loincloth. Dark Souls hand.
I was just about to say Dark Souls. You can go in with any weapon, almost any weapon, and fight a Dark Souls boss, but it would just take you longer depending on your weapon.
And I thought that's how like kind of Monster Hunter World was. Like, oh, I played Dark Souls. And Dark Souls was like, Dark Souls is tough. And I think with Dark Souls, what makes Dark Souls so tough is like how on edge it has you the entire time. Have you played any of the Dark Souls
No, I
games?
haven't. I've definitely watched enough videos where people freak out.
Yeah. So the first time I was introduced to Dark Souls, I was like 17 or 18. I don't remember how young I was. But my friend's like, oh yeah, this is a good game and it's tough. And I thought like I could take on all the games in the world because I used to try to play Halo on like its hardest difficulty and like Call of Duty's story mode and its hardest difficulty.
Yeah.
I'm like I can handle Dark Souls, and it's just like you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what you need to like do to fight it. You don't know how it's gonna fight. On top of that, all of your currency goes away as soon as you die. So like dying has so much meaning.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there is so much meaning. In other games, if you die, you just go back to the last checkpoint. In Dark
always.
Souls, you do go to the last checkpoint depending on where that last checkpoint was that you saved at. On top of that, all of your currency you lose. You can try to get it back, but if you die again before you get to it, then you lost that.
Damn, what a waste.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like most games nowadays don't seem like they're as hard at first glance, like because they have difficulty levels though. Because God of War has difficulty levels.
Yeah, because there's like 4 difficulty levels for that one.
Yeah.
So you can kind of pick and choose how hard you want to go.
And it doesn't feel like you get punished for starting off early and then trying to do the harder ones, because it feels more like the bosses don't change for the most part. Like the enemies don't change. All it is that the harder difficulties is you're easier to kill,
You
and the
just die
enemies are harder to
faster.
kill. Yeah, they have more health and shields. They do more damage. You have like less health and shields. You do less damage. That's all it really feels like. So it's more like a patience battle than anything.
Yeah, you spend a lot more time learning how to dodge and like remembering everyone's movements rather than really like feeling it it's difficult.
Because I had a friend, I can't remember who it was, but they did that with oh crap, I forget what game it was they did. I want to say it was Dark Souls, where I'm pretty sure it was Dark Souls, where there was a difficulty that they were able to choose, and they chose kind of like the easier one, and they just kept doing the easier one over and over and over again until they memorized the boss patterns, the enemy patterns, and everything until they figured it out. And then one day he had me come over and he goes, "Watch how far I can get naked in the hardest difficulty." And I was like, my mind was blown.
Yeah.
I was like, no way, like no way. And then he's like, "Yeah, I just played on the lowest difficulty and memorized everything." I'm like, "Well, that's cheating."
I mean, it is still impressive.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, but like kids nowadays could easily do that if they wanted to. Like they can just because they can just memorize everything easily because they're kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think it has more to do with like the integration of blogs and YouTubers and whatnot. Like the YouTubers that will stream and record their fights and then talk about their movements and like, oh, watch for this. And so when they go in and like these kids, like 11, 12 years old, go in and do this, like, oh yeah, I saw this streamer do this, and oh, I can hide behind this, and it takes like the difficulty out of learning it.
yeah,
You know, it's
I
being done for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are some games like most of the games we're really talking about are single player, but like World of Warcraft has, I think, one of the best ways to differentiate difficulty. Because you've
Like during
played-
Mythic Plus.
Yeah,
runs.
Mythic Pluses, Mythic Raids in general. The what differentiates that level difficulty compared to like other games like Halo storyline difficulty is that it's no longer boss has more health, you do less damage. The boss mechanics changed. The extra mobs that are in between bosses they change. Everything changes for the most part. Like they'll keep some of their old abilities, but they might do different things on top of that. Those old abilities might actually do something different. They may not have some old abilities, and I wish that was in more
games.
where like if you're like, all right, I'm gonna do normal difficulty 1,000 times, and then like I'm ready for hard difficulty, and then you go to hard difficulty, and you're not ready for hard difficulty because it's
'Cause
different.
everything
'Cause
changes.
it's different, and I feel like difficulty's dying because of that, because it's just it's more of a test of patience.
I think difficulties need to evolve. Like, so I'm gonna bring back to Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World has like easier monsters you can hunt in the beginning, and you like work your way up to harder Elder Dragons. Well, then the next level up from Elder Dragons after you beat it are tempered monsters, and these are like they hit harder. Their moves are a little unpredictable, so like you memorizing, they're gonna go from that tree to this tree and jump. Well, no, they're gonna change it up and go from that tree and jump on you when you're expecting them to do like that's the change, but that's not a difficulty thing. That's just as you progress in the game. So maybe the way that difficulty could evolve is that normal, yeah, sure, like maybe for this area, there's that one Dark Souls. Maybe there's that one samurai at the very beginning, right? Maybe now, like the next difficulty, there's 2. And they like
So it's different.
yeah.
Adding different level layers
Yeah.
to
Well,
actual difficulty.
There was the thing that Dark Souls did do is they remastered one of their games. It was, I think it was originally on. It was either PS3 or it was the beginning of PS4, and then they remastered it and they added a new one, and it was like Rise of the Scholar or something like that. It was something weird, and people were like, "Okay, cool, I can get that like Game of the Year version, go in and just kind of skip straight through to the new content." But you couldn't because they messed with you. From Software messed with you. What they did is all the ads that you remember, because if you played, I think it was Dark Souls 2. Is what they did it with. If you played Dark Souls 2 and you did it 1,000 times, like, oh, I'm gonna get on PS4 now. You get on PS4 and you're like, I just want to play the new DLC. They moved all the ads. So
everything's a lot different.
everything you could have just been done playing on PS3, like, oh cool, my buddy just brought it for PS4. Let's play on the PS4 now. You switch to the PS4 and all the ads are at different spots. So like when you walk through a room, you're like, all right, he's gonna be from the left. He's actually from the right. Like, damn, I died.
So it really feels like a whole new game out of
Yeah.
just a remaster.
Feels like I don't remember if all the ads did different things. I know some areas had different ads than they would have normally had. So like they're all ones you would have recognized. They're not necessarily new, but they're not in the places you remember. So it throws you off quite a bit. So you have to like relearn the game. Like same areas, same ads, everything's just kind of moved around. And so like that was kind of like a clever thing that they did to screw with people when they're really like, you think you can beat our game in 5 seconds? No, not today.
Let me show you right now.
What was it? I had another good example. Oh, for the evolving thing, there is a new game that's coming out. I don't think it's out yet because it might be like beta or early access. I think it's going to set the benchmark for how difficulties may change. Hello Neighbor. Have you heard of
Hello
Hello
Neighbor.
Is that the one where you have to like stay high at like, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Stay high?
No.
Stay high.
No. I
Okay,
mean,
great game to
Stay
play.
hidden?
Let me.
Stay hidden?
No, not stay hidden. Hello. Oh, that. Okay, 2 different games. I know what you're talking about. Hello Neighbor is the one where you kind of have to like. Looks like you're sneaking into your neighbor's house and you can't get caught.
So, yeah, it's kind of like, think of the old Alien game where you had to hide from the alien the entire time.
Sure.
Okay, there was an old Alien game where it was like a survival game where like it was like Alien Extinction or something like that, and you had to stay hidden from the alien, and you had this radar that would tell you. And the kind of concept that they had with that was that the alien would slightly adapt to how you
Move.
played. Yeah, it would recognize your pattern. So if you kept just like going through a door, coming back, going through a door, coming back, it would recognize that you were doing that. Hello Neighbor steps it up a lot more. So like.
So bring me through the premise of this game. What's
So
going
the
on?
premise of the game is that you got this new neighbor that comes in, and then it's kind of think of like Disturbia with what's his name, Shia LaBeouf. Remember how his neighbor moves in and he sees he's got like body bags and stuff like that, and so
Yeah.
like you assume your neighbor's a murderer. That's basically, and he basically is. That spoiler alert. So you break into his house to kind of figure it out, and then he comes home or whatever it is, and you have to try to like get out the house. And that's basically the thing is you have to get out of his house. That's all you gotta do.
So you're breaking and entering.
Yeah.
And trying to escape.
Yeah, you're breaking and you're breaking.
What are we
entering.
teaching these kids?
Because you find out he is a murderer and like I gotta report this to the cops. But the way it works is as you're like moving around and trying to hide and get to new places, he adapts way more to like your play style. So say for example, you go through and you almost get to the end. You're like, dang it, I know what to do next time. You go to do it next time. He recognizes what you
And
did
it'll
last
change.
time, and he will change how he moves around the house. So he won't have the same patterns. He won't react the same way as he normally would. So like, I don't know exactly the gameplay, but say you took a lamp and threw it in the other room. The first time he may have gone for that. The second time, he may not go for that. He may like someone threw that over there, and so. And the more you play, the more he starts to recognize how you play, and will counteract that. And it just gets harder and harder.
All right, so the developers really worked on like upping the AI.
Yeah.
To like really trick you. Interesting.
Yeah, and I think like that's how I want to see difficulties go in the future. Like,
Responsive AI.
Yeah.
I want a better responsive AI. I don't want ones that are gonna like keep doing the same moves over and over again. I want them to have like some hidden moves that they do once they recognize your fighting pattern. Like, all right, so I'm doing an up attack, I'm doing a side attack to an up attack, but I realize you start to do a side attack when I do an up attack. So now I'm gonna actually block now, and I want to see more responsive AIs for sure.
All right,
I
so
feel like-
I feel like I can really only work towards more action geared games
Ye-
and more like horror survival.
Yeah.
because a lot of other games like couldn't really implement that.
No.
Well, take for example like an open world game like Legend of Zelda, for example.
Oh, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the
Hell
Wild. I didn't get a chance to play all of it yet. I've only played some of it, but like imagine if like a boss fight in that changed depending on how you fought. So
That'd be fantastic.
yeah,
So I already feel like that game has another level of difficulty because it forces you to really like start out new and everything breaks and it's a lot of just survival in a Legend of Zelda game. So I think that'd be a really cool way to up that up.
because for the most part, most bosses in most games, like Dark Souls, Legend of Zelda, after you're fighting the boss so many times, you feel like you get a handle for them. I want the boss. Like, I don't want that sensation. I want like, all right, I know what the moves are, but I don't know how it's gonna fight this time around. It doesn't have the same attack patterns. The animations may change up, so it may start to do another attack a little bit faster than it would, or slower, depending. I want it to change. I want it to evolve. Which I think there was another game that was somewhat similar where the bosses did that. But that game failed from what I recall, because like that's all it had going for it. The story and everything else was like pretty garbage. All it had going for it was the bosses.
Well, they could just do a full-on boss run. That's the whole game.
That's basically it. What would you say would be lacking from difficulties though? Like when it comes to like games nowadays, because it is. Besides, like the it doesn't feel like the AI is responsive enough. Like, what else seems missing from most games that could make it more difficult?
I mean, there's always. Every time I think of something that's way too impossible for me, I think of the challenge levels in like Super Mario Odyssey right now, because you have to hit perfect jumps each time to land to even make it fast enough to get to like a certain area before you like fall to your death.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that precision that you need for certain games, which makes it difficult. Like, have you ever seen like people who've made their own like Super Mario Maker levels, and they're just
God help.
excessively precise, and you just want to punch them for being that good at it?
Yeah.
It kind of like frustrates me because I won't be that good unless I practice so hard. But it's interesting seeing how like difficult things can get, yet someone can be so precise about their movements and their actions, and which makes those games look like piece of cake.
I've watched those Super Mario Maker videos, and I'll go through them like right now watching it, I can't comprehend. And when I go through it, I'll probably go through it a couple of times. Like, I think I know what to do, but I still can't. I can't
Right?
do it yet. I know what's going on here, but I
It's
can't
like,
perform.
I know the exact moment he jumps, but if I even like split hairs by a millisecond, I'm dead, and I lost
Yeah.
all that progress.
What about you, Connor? What's something that you feel like that's missing from difficulty in video games?
You might have to come back to me because I haven't figured that out yet.
I already know mine. I thought of mine. Like the thing that makes a difficult game for me are puzzles. Puzzles are things that I feel like most days are the same repetitive things over and over again. Like a prime example is a generic one that I've seen used in a lot of things, and it's like 3 pillars. You have all these colors on one pillar, and you have to get them to like each individual one, and so you have to like move one to the third pillar, move one to the second, move the third back to the first, second to the third, and you have to like do that. That's like a constantly used type of puzzle that
Yeah, yeah.
happens. And so for me, when I encounter a game where there's a brand new puzzle that's like, what do I have to do? That's what makes it for me, is when like it's not only what do I have to do, but it's also like really brain racking. If I feel like when it comes to mechanics of games where you hitting that precision or something, for me that I can get that, I can pick that up pretty quick, not necessarily easily, but like I'll figure it out easy, like quick enough. But when it's a puzzle, and I have to like really, all right, I have to be precise. I have to, sometimes have to fight other things. Sometimes I have to kill the right things in order to help the puzzle. That's when it starts to like, all right, I'm feeling challenged. I'm feeling like this is difficult. And so maybe even in games with higher difficulties, add puzzles that didn't exist before. I feel like that would be a thing to make them better.
I get it.
All right, I think I have mine.
Okay.
I think it would be nuances to regular boss fights and ads. Like,
Okay.
maybe it's just the evolving AI system, but I would love to see, like, if you were to go from like a tutorial easy mode, you learn it all, and then you go to like a normal mode or even hard or expert mode. There's now even like elements you probably wouldn't reach until later on. So like, you know, that kind of things.
I get it,
and you hit it earlier, but it's randomized. So like, oh, I'm expecting this guy to have a fire sword. I'm gonna have my water staff if I need to. Like just throwing like random stuff out there. But like expert mode, well, all right, cool. He should have a fire staff. Nope, he's got lightning. I've got water. I'm screwed. Like I need to adjust and then go back, and like the preparation is the biggest thing for me. Like if it catches me off guard, I find that like a difficult. And if it's continuing, like that's something that would like frustrate me, but also like challenge me to keep going and like want to conquer this.
But when it comes to that, I feel like when it comes to difficulties, the game that constantly rocks it is still World of Warcraft. I feel like when it comes to their raids and their mythics, because they do just that. Like you have your looking for raid, and that's the pretty easy. Like you get a gist of like what a raid is, playing with other players, some boss mechanics. Like it's way different than a regular dungeon. Like in regular dungeons, you can kind of like let mechanics happen.
You can skate by pretty much.
Yeah, in raids, like in looking for raid, you kind of can let it happen too, but you know what to prepare for. Then you go into normal mode, and you have those mechanics, but a little bit different, and you're like still not too crazy. And then you do heroic mode, and like usually it's the last boss that changes a little bit too much, where you're like, all right, that was kind of fun and a little difficult at the same time. But then when you step into mythic mode, it's not fun.
It's true. It's just pure hell.
It's you. Because I was doing Cutting Edge for Artist on Maker, and I wasn't able to play anymore, so I didn't get to finish it off, which was upsetting. But like, he was the last boss, and he had changed, I think, 100% compared to any other boss that I've seen. I didn't get to experience the Gul'dan's change, but he was a boss that you went in, you're like, all right, I expect him to have these abilities, this ability, this ability, and this ability, and like this phase, this phase, this phase, and this phase, and like that didn't happen. Like even most people that went in on like the first week when there was no videos and no one had any idea how to play, they had no idea what was in store for them for the end. And so like Blizzard does a wonderful job with all their games, and when it comes to changing up the difficulty in games, I feel like they're just like, they set the benchmark, man. Like I want to see that in future games. I want Anthem, because Anthem's a big game we're all waiting for.
That's true.
I feel like if there's any hope for that game for it to not crash, it's for them. Like for a lot of reasons, there's a lot of things they needed to do to make it not crash. But for that game to have my love over like Destiny or something, is the difficulty needs to be different. It like if you have different difficulties, they need to be different, because it doesn't feel like that in Destiny. It just feels harder. You know, you have your challenge mode, but like the challenge mode is kind of like, hey, while you're doing it on the hard mode, which is just more health and stuff, try doing this to make it a little difficult on yourself. And there's like not much to it. So I want significant changes when you're like, all right, you're going through this dungeon in Anthem. I want it to have like a normal difficulty and then like a screw you difficulty where you just go in and everything's different, everything's changed. I feel like that game has like has me behind it. That's what
I'd be interested to see if that's the way the Anthem goes, because the way the whole world is set up is that the world is constantly changing.
Yeah.
So it has that potential for sure, but we obviously don't have enough information on that.
Yeah.
Right now. I mean, it doesn't release till next February, February 22nd.
Oh wow, we're waiting that long?
Yeah. But like we're still getting more information about it. Like there was the E3 gameplay content that they showed this year.
Yes.
They released the full 20-minute gameplay of that, like the whole, all the way through, not just the snippets. They released the entire way through, all the way past the boss fight.
Which Trent and I, because we went to EA Live or whatever, it's EA Play, and so we got to see it before they released it to everyone else. And I had said to him afterwards, like, you know, the same thing, like, I want this game to be difficult, but from what we saw, it didn't seem like it.
Didn't feel like
from
it.
The boss fight, from what we saw, looked like it was just a bullet sponge. Like, they spent so much time on the boss, and they were taking no health from it. but it didn't from my perspective, it did not seem like the boss fight was hard. From me playing like WoW and Destiny and stuff like that, it just seemed like generic boss stuff, and it could be an early on dungeon, and so that's how it is.
Yeah, you could just be them like playing it for the demo, so they know you won't die.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the boss seemed to have way too much health for how little what was going on around them, and so I was like, I hope that that's not how it is. I'm sure it won't be, but I want it to be way more than what we saw. What would you consider to be like the hardest game you thought was easy going into it? A game that was like surprisingly hard.
Super Mario Brothers.
Like the original?
As a kid, there was no like difficulty level for that. Like it just got harder as you went.
Yeah.
But like it's the like precision in that.
True.
Like as a kid playing this like side scroller, like the Mighty Number 9 series, like the one spin-off of Mighty Number 9 or the old Mega Man series, like you had side scrollers that just felt so precise. That was like, as a kid, that frustrated me because it was like I was just
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, you're so right.
To this date, I've never beat Mega Man. I've never beat any of the Mega
I
Mans.
was gonna say Mega Man 2 was probably the hardest game of my entire childhood.
I never beat Mega Man 1. I tried to play all the Mega Mans. I would play the first one, like, can't do it. Let's see, maybe they made it easier. And like play the second one, like, nope. Play the third one, nope. I couldn't even get past the first level on some of them. Like, I just had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
It's like, all you do is jump and shoot. You just jump and shoot. That's all you do.
But see, like, even the simplicity of that, how they can make that so difficult with the gameplay, like, it's a side scroller. You jump and shoot. And they just turn that into, like, but what do I do?
Yes.
Where do I go?
But I guess like nowadays, you know, in order to change up difficulty, they have to be very AI driven, and they're still working on making AI better. So I totally kind of like get that. That's why I'm saying like puzzles. Maybe add some hidden moves that they don't have on early difficulties, at least for now, because otherwise it just feels like I'm playing Halo story mode with higher difficulties. And like the one thing that still gave Halo some redemption for me, for being difficult, was the skulls. Did you guys ever play the Halo games?
Not too much.
So a thing that you could do is you can go through like some of them you had to be on certain difficulties in order to get them, but there was these skulls that you got, and you could find them like they were super hidden. Some of them were like you had to do glitches. Like Bungie allowed certain glitches to happen so you can get to these skulls, and it was great because what these skulls did is you could turn them on when you go back into story mode, and they would do different things. So one of them was like a blind skull, so you had no radar, you had no sensors, no nothing, and so like it was an achievement to go through the hardest mode with that skull on. Another one was like one shot kill, so if you get shot once you die without no shields. And so like those skulls, they changed the way the difficulty was on
So it's
top
playing
of
like a challenge mode.
yeah, it was like a challenge mode, and you could activate these skulls. And some of them did funny things too, like all grenades super bounce. And so like, so I think one of them was like, I'm pretty sure one of them was something like that. And all I remember was like, I got used to the legendary mode or whatever it was. I did some of those skulls, like no radar, one shot kills, and then I'm like, let's do super bouncy grenades. And that threw me off. That was the most confusing thing in the world because you have these grenades everywhere. So now you have to play worried about being one-shotted. You can't tell where the enemies are coming from, and there's grenades raining from the sky everywhere. So you had to like...
So they can be launched from far, and you're like, ah!
And there was like other ones that just like they were funny and they were random, but like when you activated them, the game was 100% different. It was like Skyrim but with mods. That's what it felt like. It felt like Skyrim but with mods. But Bungie allowed it.
John, what is your hardest game to date? Did you answer that?
I mean, I kind of said Mega Man
Oh,
back in the day because I'm trying to think of anything else that was like really killer for me. Oh man, I don't know. Can't really think of anything that like made me rage quit too hard.
Yeah.
I have a fair like amount of times where I've rage quit and like had to come back to games like years later because I'm like, I'm not ready for this. I'm freaking 10. Well, a game that I did try to come back to several times and I still have not beaten to date, and like it's just more of a I don't want to deal with this. And like every time I come back to it is Majora's Mask. So the first time
I can get that. I can see that.
For Majora's Mask, because I beat Ocarina of Time and I had so much fun when I said I went through Ocarina of Time. Like, all right, I'm gonna play Majora's Mask, and Majora's Mask was a whole new like mental puzzle fu thing to me, and that's why I liked it was because did you ever play Majora's Mask? So Majora's
Did you play it as a kid?
No, I did not. But I can only imagine because when I first played it, my friends had told me the concept. They're like, all right, basically you have 3 days in the game to beat it. I'm like, dope, I'm gonna do it. And so I went through and I got to the first, like I beat the first area and then the moon crashed. I'm like, what? I had no idea what happened. And so then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to do it faster. And so I'm like, all right, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And I do it again and I get a little bit further into the second level, like maybe like 10 feet in the second level, and the moon crashes. I'm like, what's going on? Like, how is this physically possible? And then I realized, oh, I have to rewind time or whatever. So I'd go beat the first level, rewind time, because like it kind of like follows back or whatever. And I'm like, all right, now do I do the second level? Like I didn't figure out, like I couldn't figure out the order of how to
right
do
way
it.
to actually play the game.
And then I think I finally got to like the third area before my roommates at the time and I like split apart. But so like to this day I still couldn't beat it because I have to constantly go in, try to do like what I know as fast as I can, and then figure out the second thing before I run out of time. And if I run out of time, then it's like crap. Now I have to like redo the first thing, then I have to redo the second thing up to where I know, and then like you get to the boss fight, and then you're still confused on how the boss fight works. I think that's probably one now.
And imagine that as a kid.
Yeah, I couldn't. I don't.
I never finished that game as a kid because it was. That
Did you
rough.
finally beat it as an adult?
No, I mean I thought about buying the game because it came out on 3DS, and I was like, do I want to put myself through that much torture again? Maybe not. I low-key kind of want to play it again, though.
I know.
Now I'm thinking about it.
GameStop. I'm like,
Closure, dude. You want to finish
That's
it.
true.
like there are games that are like that though that were so difficult when you first played through them, and you kind of gave up because like this is too difficult for me right now. I wanted something fun to play, and my friend's like Legend of Zelda, and you're like, you were wrong. I didn't want mental stress.
You want to talk about mental stress? Talk about emotional stress. I'm gonna bring it back. Kingdom Hearts, like the Riku fight inside Hollow Bastion, like finding out like I just beat Maleficent. This is awesome. All right, cool. Walk through. Yeah, Kairi. Oh yeah, I got you. No worries. Riku, I gotta fight you.
You're my best friend, man.
And you're like zooming around, and you're just like I probably played like for 2 hours a night for like a week before I was like I didn't put this down. Like I did this cool thing. I can't like go elsewhere like to level up or anything right now. I just like I want to beat him. I had to step away for like a month.
I think that's perfect. A perfect example too of another thing that makes games difficult is the emotional value that they like, the emotional stress that they put you through. Because like think of Slenderman. Slenderman.
Oh,
and it's
he just puts you through like hell.
And its basic concept is just really easy. But because like they have you on edge, like Dark Souls, like you're constantly in fear the entire time, the game is just that much harder. So like that could be another thing is like just make the game like emotionally racking of some sort. Final Fantasy X, I love that game. It's probably one of my favorites of all time. I could not go back and do all the extra stuff after I beat the game and the ending happened. I could not. I think I finally went and like 100% of the game a couple of years ago finally because I'm like the Pokemon movie, I have to do this so many times before I stop crying and then I can handle it. And so I would get to that point and I just like I would get to the point, stop playing for like 2 weeks and then go back like all right, I'm
ready.
I'm ready.
Like I've read it all out. I'm ready to go back in again.
And so Final Fantasy 15 did that to me too a little bit. But
I have a lot of Square Enix games.
They're good.
Really.
For most of the game, I don't feel like I go through much emotional stress. But then it's like at the very end, they're like, "Hey, by the way, your favorite character dead." Like Gonzo.
But honestly, that's what they do so well.
And that's why we like them so much.
Yeah, like they build it up very much. Just they make you want, like they make you love that character over time, and then that climax hits like at the very end of the game, and you're just like, I did this. I put so much time into you, and you're dead, and I just got like for example, I'm playing Divinity: Original Sin right now. Okay. And I'd never played it before. I got to a part to where one of my companions, I found her counterpart like behind a waterfall, and I'm like, cool. I'm about to finish her storyline, and she's like, but he's my friend and my mentor. Bye. And I have to fight her now, and I'm like, I'm not even there. Like, I put time into you, and like, I kept you alive through these fights. Like, we fought goblins together. I'm just like, ugh. I did not expect that to happen.
So you're going through emotional stress trying to fight your friend.
I feel that when what was it? When you played Tales of Symphonia, and then you get betrayed by Kratos, and he comes to Yggdrasil, and I think I went through so much just pain, just getting through like that halfway point in that game, and then realizing like how much like you wasted because you just believed in him so much, and now he betrays you.
There's so many games that do that, and I want more to do it though, because it feels like most of those games are like kind of like older games where like you get one a year that does that to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like games should be reworking how they become difficulty. I don't feel like they're difficult enough, and if you may get one a year, 1 or 2 a year that's like, that was fun, that was a challenge, or like that one was emotionally racking. I don't know. What do you guys feel about that? Do you feel games have gotten easier in a sense that like it's more about patience than it is skill, just like taking the time to figure out the boss patterns, figuring out the enemy patterns, because it feels more like things are too easy to read nowadays, on top of they just do a little bit more damage on harder difficulties, so I have to just be more patient with how I attack.
I think it is a lot more like games nowadays have more of a patience factor. Like I look at Monster Hunter World, I look at God of War, like what we've been talking about. You watch a monster's fight patterns. Where are you gonna go now? Dodge. Cool. Like I can set up for my next attack here. I look at God of War. You don't memorize it, but you observe an enemy fight pattern, and you're like, cool, these guys are coming here. Like button mashing. Let's clear the area. Let's pop like some Spartan Rage. Let's just clear it and go. I think games are. I agree to having at least like one emotionally like filled game that challenges you. But I think games are getting a little more like patience worthy.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see the games have just been like the difficulty level has been a lot easier, and that might be just because they're trying to make a lot more games more accessible to more people, where it's easier to get into the franchise and easier to like get into this series because like it starts off easy.
They want you to experience the story. Is like what they want you to do.
Like rather focused on spending hours killing bosses. But I think there's a certain group of people that really want that, and it's hard to really market to those kinds of people because they're trying to reach such a wide audience.
Yeah.
So inputting those like extreme levels is like the one thing they can do to really get us to try harder, but it's only very, very so often that's actually gonna show up.
Yeah. I mean, with streamers nowadays, I feel like if they do implement more stuff like that, where like the extreme level has different changes that's harder, like that game's probably going to get bought more than you would have thought like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because someone's going to stream it, someone's going to do those harder difficulties, everyone's like, I played that game.
Now I want to go back to it.
Yeah, I want to go back to it now. I'm playing on that harder difficulty now. Like, I want to try it. I saw this guy do it. It looks easy, and then you go back and do it, and like you get... I want it to where like I'm frustrated that I can't do it, but not too much to where like, I want to give up on it. But like, I feel like I'm close. I feel like I'm figuring it out. And then when we figure out one thing, there's a new thing. I enjoy games that are like, oh, we want you to play for the story. I get that. I love that. I want to play the story. Sometimes there are games where like, I already know this could be hard. I don't want to deal with that right now. I want to go on the easier level because I want to experience the story, because to me, it's a story experience. But then like, I want to go back and I want to play it on the hardest difficulty, and I want it to be different. Like, I skip cutscenes, give me hard boss fights. But yeah, I think that pretty much... We're all in agreement that games are a little bit more easier than they were before.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I want to thank you, John, for coming and joining us. It was great having you help talk with us.
Heck yeah, man.
I hope we can possibly see you for future episodes. I'm sure you would like to come back, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, Connor, once again, thank you so much.
Cheers.
For helping out and joining us again. And thank you, listeners. We hope you enjoy this podcast. Please let us know if there's anything you'd like to hear us talk about in the future, or anything that you liked or disliked about our conversations. If you disagree and think games are actually way more difficult, then fight me, bro. come at me because I feel like games are too easy nowadays.
You can definitely reach out to us with any of your comments. We'd love to hear what you found to be your hardest game. You can tweet us at That Geek Show, all one word. On Twitter, you can also find us on Instagram, and we have a Facebook account. Again, it's going to be at That Geek Show. Give us a look. Tell us what you thought. Tell us what you think your hardest bosses are. Tell us what you think your hardest games were. What game did you really have a hard time beating growing up? We'd love to hear from you. John, thank you again for hopping in. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I probably should follow you guys' ads.
Probably do that.
We just gained a new follower. There we go, one at a time.
And then I have one last ending question. It's going to be just a quick question. You just give an answer, and then we can end it on that, all right? What was your guys' favorite boss fight of all time? All-time boss fight. Could have been hard, could have been an emotional one where like you just were painstakingly doing it, like the Riku fight, or one that just took you forever to beat, or something like that.
The final boss of Blackwing Lair in World of Warcraft, because I was about 13 raiding with a bunch of people over the internet, and I felt like, this is my time. I finally got my purple helm, and it just best time.
Best time.
Oh, man. Honestly, the biggest thing I can come back to is probably the Riku fight, because I put so much time into it. I know there's one, like a recent one out there that I probably no, it's the Nergigante fight in Monster Hunter World.
I still haven't gotten that yet.
He is a powerhouse, and he took me a long time and a lot of like hours of grunting and like angry, like yeah. It really made me mad. So yeah, probably the Nergigante fight in Monster Hunter World.
My favorite boss fight, I'm gonna have to go with Final Fantasy 15 with the last boss. I can't remember his name now, the Chancellor, but like. I love that fight for so many reasons, that they were telling a story and doing a cutscene the entire time you were fighting. That was the most intense, epic, well cinematically driven boss fight I'd ever encountered. Like all the other ones, they were all on their own cool levels, like the Leviathan fight, but to like really cut it through cinematics as you're fighting, you're still getting the story told rather like than having like random lines being yelled as you're fighting. I just felt like that was the coolest boss fight I had ever done, and I want more. Alright, thanks again, guys.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We will catch you later.
Bye.